Shalom, with that self souls, but giving no praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, B'Shem Kadash. Double honors to the Apostle of Great Millstone, and honors to brothers doing the work of the Most High in truth and in sincerity. Yahweh's real name, of whom the world even calls God, Jehovah or Yahweh. His real name is Yahweh. His son's true name is Yahweh Shai. And when we pray Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, but meaning in, Hamdulillah, and Sham, meaning names Yahweh and the name of Yahweh Shai. So I wanted to get into this. It's something I wanted to do a video on for a while, but I've forgotten about it. And then, which was listen to the Apostle Gabar, Bishop Zakaran's, going live on a Tuesday, and touched on it again. So I thought it were good to just go over it, because one of the things that is one of the things that we've got to be aware of, right, is that some of us are gonna have to lay down our life for this thing, right? Our Lord Yahweh shall lay down our lives, his life salaki for us, right? And therefore that is something that may be required of us ourselves, right? Right, this is John 15 and 13, right? It says, "Greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. Ye are my friends, if you do whatsoever I command you. Right, henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth, but I've called you friends, for all things that I have heard of my Father are made known unto you." And this is it. It's like a real thing that we have to really grasp and accept and be prepared for, right? Is that we may have to lay down our lives, right? But the thing is, it's like there's a reward for that. Okay, there's a reward for that, because ultimately that's just it. There's always a reward, right? Let me read into it. This is Matthew 19:27. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Yahushua said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that ye which have followed me, in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, ye also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And everyone that hath forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands for my name's sake, shall receive 100-fold, and it shall inherit everlasting life. Right, so this was Peter. He was like, look, Lord, we basically made the sacrifice, like what we're going to get in return, right? And everything that we have sacrificed, we're going to get back, right? And we, once again, part of that is gonna be ourselves, not all of us, right? That's in this time is very much a thing where it's a time of salvation. Okay, so that may not necessarily be the case for all of us, right? But one thing that we are aware of is our sacrifices won't end just for the things that we things and people that we have to give up, right? It may require more of us. Okay, but as we're reading here, there's a reward for it, right? Because even if it is our life that we end up having to give up, right? The scriptures say this, right? So 1 Thessalonians 4, right? And 16, right? It says, "For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, and with the voice of the archangel, with the trumpet of the Most High, and the dead in Mashiach shall rise first." Right? So those that died for the sake of the truth, right? They shall be risen first, and that's a great reward. The Lord is balanced. Everything that we give up on this side, the Lord is going to allow us to have a reward for it, right? If we be of his men, right? It goes on to say in verse 17, "So then we which are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Wherefore comfort one another with these words," right? And then let me just load this one up for later on, right? But let's go into this real quick, right? So I asked Rebel, tell me about the deaths of the 12 apostles, right? And some of this is extra biblical, if you want to frame it that way, right? Because what it says, sorry, so like, right, so it says death of the 12 apostles, right? Tradition versus history. So what we know about how the apostles died, it comes from a mix of early Christian tradition, right? Later church writings and limited historical records. Only a few deaths are described in the New Testament itself, right? The rest are tradition, not courtroom level facts, right? So, just putting that there as a caveat at the beginning. Okay, so it says Peter, right? Death, crucified upside down, right? In Rome, right? The source being early church tradition, right? Certainty high by, quote, ancient standards, right? Why upside down, right? So tradition says he felt unworthy to die like Mashiach, right? It says Andrew, right? Crucified on an X-shaped cross, right? In Patras, right? Greece. It says certainty moderate. It says James the Great beheaded, right? Jerusalem, right? Source Acts 12:2, right? Which we can load that one up. Just jump over there. Right? Oh, Acts 12:2, Slovakia. Right, it says Acts 12 from the top says, now about the time Herod the king stretched forth his hand to vex certain of the church, and he killed James the brother of John with the sword. And because he saw it pleased the Jews, right, he proceeded further to take Peter also, right? Then were the days of unleavened bread. Okay, so which even in that statement there, right, and because he saw it pleased the Jews, showing that they're going to be those that let me see. It's precept that's just come to mind. I can't remember how it's phrased fully. So let me just look for it real quick. There we go, one sec. Yeah, it says John 16 from the top. These things have I spoken unto you, that you should not be offended. They shall put you out of the synagogues. Yea, the time cometh that whosoever killeth you will think that he doeth the Most High service. Right? So you're gonna have those that, will be, trying to persecute, the church, right? The real church, thinking that they do the Most High service, right? But then you just got straight up those that are just straight up demons, okay? That they're doing it for the sake of slacking. They're just going to be doing it for the sake of, just being straight up demons, man. Okay. They're gonna. You also have this is Matthew 23:37. It says, O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them which are sent unto thee. Right? How often would I have gathered thy children together, even as a hen gathers her chickens under her wings, and you would not? Okay, basically just going into this tangent, just for the fact that Jake has always been coming up against the men of the Lord. That's nothing new, right? So as we read that, right, and he saw that it pleased the Jews. Okay, but yeah, so going back to the list, right? So this is John, right? Natural causes, old age, right? Place Ephesus high, survived persecution, possibly exile in Patmos, right? Because the Lord had a the Lord basically had a job, right, for John to do, which was to basically get the revelations that he did. Okay, so there goes on to Philip, right, crucified or hanged, right, Hierapolis, right, modern day Turkey, right, Bartholomew, often linked with Nathanael, right, says flayed alive, then beheaded, right, certainty is low to moderate, right, one of the most brutal martyrdom traditions. Right, and it says, you reading some of these, like flayed alive, right? That's peel the skin off, right? So he was flayed, okay? According to tradition, although the certainty is low and moderate, right? Basically going into the fact that being a man, Lord, ain't always roses, okay? There's a huge sacrifice that comes with it. And part of that sacrifice, in Matthew 19, we got into the sacrifice of, the things that we may lose, right, in the flesh, but then also the fact that, Now we're going into the fact that we may lose our lives in this thing, right? And in brutal fashion almost. Okay. Because flayed alive and then beheaded, that's just like, yo, you know. But guess what? The Most High would have made a way, right? In fact, we can trying to think. The way it's phrased has completely escaped me. Yeah. So this is Acts 7 and 54, right? Stephen put to death. It says, when they heard these things, they were cut to the heart, right? And they gnashed on him, right, with their teeth, right? But he, being full of the Holy Spirit, looked up steadfastly into heaven and saw the glory of the Most High, and Yahushua standing on the right hand of the Most High, and said, behold, I see the heavens open, and the Son of Man standing on the right hand of the Most High. Then they cried out with a loud voice and stopped their ears, and ran upon him with one accord, right, and cast him out of the city and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their clothes at the young man's feet, whose name was Saul. And they stoned Stephen, calling upon the Most High and saying, Lord, Yahushua, receive my spirit. Right. So basically, the point I'm making here is like Stephen was in the spirit. Okay. And whatever it is that the Most High has us go through in these last days, right? The Lord is going to make it such that we are in the spirit, that we can go through it, right, for the glorying of his name, right? Now, once again, it's like we understand that in this time, it's a time of salvation, right? But we also have to consider, right, that in the history, the men of the Lord, they didn't go out nicely. Okay. So it goes on, right? So that was Bartholomew, right? And then Matthew, right? Death, traditionally stabbed or beheaded, with conflicting traditions existing, right? So low certainty, right? And then Thomas, right? Speared to death, right? In near modern day Chennai in India, right? Certainty moderate, right? Strongly preserved in Indian Christian tradition, right? James the Less, it says thrown from the temple, then clubbed, right? Jerusalem, certainty moderate, sometimes confused with James, the brother of Yahushua, right? Jude, right? Thaddeus, also called Jude, right? Clubbed or speared, right? In Persia, it's with certainty low, right? Simon the Zealot, sawn in half or crucified. Accounts differ, right? And says in Persia or Syria, so low certainty, right? And Judas Iscariot, right? Suicide, as we know, right? So big picture takeaway, at least 9 to 11 of the apostles are traditionally believed to have been martyred, right? John is the clear exception, dying of old age. These accounts mattered deeply to early Christians, because they reinforced the core belief, right? The apostles truly believed what they preached unto death, right? And that's what the scriptures charge us to do, right? This is Revelation 2:10, right? It says, fear none of those things which thou shalt suffer, right? Behold, the devil shall cast some of you into prison, that ye may be tried, and ye shall have tribulation 10 days, right? Which is basically going into any period of time. It says, be thou faithful unto death, and I'll give thee a crown of life. Right, so we must needs be, faithful, regardless whatever it is that comes our way, right? Being faithful unto death. Okay, so this is what this is going into here, right? They truly believed, right? We must truly also believe, right? We've been charged once again to believe unto death as well. Okay, and just being being prepared, and ultimately knowing that if we have to lay down our lives, there's a great reward for it, right? We shall be, as we read in Thessalonians, we shall be raised up with Yahushua, right? Which is a great honor. Okay, and then let's jump over to Revelation, right, 20:4. It says, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yahushua, for the word of the Most High, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their right hands. And they lived and reigned with Mashiach 1,000 years. Right? I'm just going to close on wisdom, the 3rd chapter, right? So the souls of the righteous are in the hand of the Most High, and there shall no torment touch them. In the sight of the unwise they seem to die, and their departure is taken for misery, right? It says, and they're going from us to be utter destruction, but they're in peace. It says, for though they be punished in the sight of men, yet is there hopeful of immortality, and having been a little chastised, they shall be greatly rewarded, for the Most High proved them and found them worthy for himself. And even on that little chastised, this is 2 Corinthians 4:17. It says, for our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. Right, so whatever it is that we got to go through, it is ultimately a light affliction. Okay, it is lightly a light affliction, not not anything that in the grand scheme of things we will be we'd have to worry about. Okay, it's just we go and look back and be like, oh shit, we went through that, innit? Right, in eternity, a trillion years from now, right, we go and look back at this time. Oh, remember when you used to wake up at dumb o'clock, sign in, go to work and do this, have an Edomite boss and this and the other. You're going, oh shit, yeah. That's what we go and look back. It's going to just be a light affliction. Okay, so it says goes on to say, right, it says where am I? Yeah, verse 6, right? It says, as gold in the furnace hath he tried them and received them as a burnt offering, right? And in the time of their visitation they shall shine and run to and fro like sparks among the stubble, right? They shall judge the nations and have dominion over the people, and the Lord shall reign forever, right? Yeah, that's it, right? So in the in the sight of men, right, it seems like you see men get martyred. It seems like, damn, right, it's a point of death, or point of sadness, or whatever, what have you. But the Most High, is going to bring those men back that die in this truth, right? And ultimately, all scriptures speak heavy on reincarnation in general, right? But hey, the Lord has keeps his men. And in fact, we can end on that, right? This is Psalms 116:15. Precious in the sight of Yahweh is the death of his saints. So as always, Lord's will, that was edifying. Until next time, we say Shalom.